The moment that report left the palace walls, the illusion didn't just crack, it shattered into 1,000 silent, trembling pieces. And suddenly, the world wasn't looking at a mischievous little prince anymore. It was staring at a carefully protected secret that insiders now whisper was never supposed to survive outside those golden gates. For years, all anyone saw was the performance, the cheeky smiles, the playful waves, the iconic tongue-out moments that turned Prince Louis into the monarchy's most unexpected viral star. But behind those perfectly timed photographs, behind those curated balcony appearances, something darker was unfolding, something nobody dared to name out loud, something that palace insiders allegedly buried under layers of rehearsed laughter and forced normalcy. Because what the public saw as charm, insiders quietly recognized as distress. And the deeper investigators looked, the more unsettling it became. It started with whispers, quiet, nervous whispers from staff, who suddenly stopped making eye contact when his name came up. Whispers that were never written down, but were passed between trembling voices in hallways and service corridors. According to internal accounts, there were nights when the palace felt less like a home and more like a pressure chamber, when Louis would reportedly withdraw into himself, not with tantrums or chaos, but with something far more unsettling: silence. A silence that staff didn't know how to fix. A silence that no royal protocol could manage. One former nanny, whose words were quietly buried at the time, allegedly described moments when the young prince would stare blankly ahead, unreachable, as if he had slipped somewhere far beyond the reach of comforting words or familiar faces. And that's when the first cracks in the illusion began to form. Because while the public laughed at his unpredictable moments, the exaggerated reactions, the dramatic expressions, the refusal to conform to royal stiffness, insiders weren't laughing at all. They were watching carefully. They were monitoring every movement, every blink, every unexpected reaction that couldn't be explained away as simple childish behavior. Public appearances became strategic operations. Every appearance was rehearsed, timed, controlled. And if you go back and look closely, really closely, you'll notice something that once seemed innocent but now feels calculated. The handler's always nearby, always watching, always ready to intervene the moment his behavior drifted outside the carefully approved script. And then came the psychological observer, the figure who would later become the palace's most feared internal threat, the woman known only as Dr. K. She wasn't introduced as a psychologist. That would have raised questions. She arrived quietly, disguised as an educational consultant, slipping into the palace ecosystem without triggering alarm, without inviting media curiosity. But her mission wasn't educational. Her mission was investigative. She wasn't there to teach. She was there to understand. And what she found reportedly shook her in ways even her decades of experience hadn't prepared her for. Because what she saw wasn't defiance. It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't misbehavior. It was something far more fragile. A child caught between two realities, one authentic and one staged. According to accounts later connected to her observations, Louis wasn't simply reacting to noise or crowds, he was reacting to the weight of expectation, to the overwhelming pressure of performing emotional normalcy under constant observation. And insiders claim he reportedly asked a question that would later haunt everyone involved: why he had to smile when he didn't feel safe. That question alone, simple and heartbreaking, exposed a reality the palace had desperately tried to conceal. Because the monarchy doesn't run on vulnerability, it runs on perception. It runs on strength, continuity, and above all else, stability. And stability cannot afford visible cracks. Not in public, not in photographs, not in heirs. That's when the internal conflict reportedly intensified. Because while Dr. K was documenting what she saw, palace officials were reportedly documenting something else: damage control. Instead of reducing exposure, appearances continued. Instead of prioritizing protection, the performance continued. According to accounts connected to the leaked report, the system didn't slow down, it doubled down. Smiles became more frequent, appearances became more curated. Public moments became more controlled than ever before. And yet, beneath the surface, insiders say the tension was escalating. Staff were quietly reassigned. Schedules were adjusted without explanation. Certain media angles disappeared. Moments that would normally dominate headlines were suddenly absent. The palace wasn't addressing the problem publicly, it was erasing any visible evidence that the problem existed at all. Because acknowledging vulnerability inside the monarchy doesn't just change perception, it changes everything. It raises questions about succession. It raises questions about preparedness. It raises questions the institution itself may not be ready to answer. And that's when the turning point happened. the moment Dr. K allegedly refused to stay silent. Her report, originally intended for internal review only, didn't just document behavioral observations. It reportedly documented systemic neglect, a system prioritizing image preservation over emotional protection. It wasn't an accusation, it was an exposure. And the moment that report began circulating beyond Palace control, the panic reportedly began. Because suddenly, the narrative wasn't theirs anymore. Suddenly, the carefully constructed illusion was vulnerable. Suddenly, the monarchy wasn't controlling the story was controlling them. And insiders say that's when the palace shifted into full crisis mode. Because once the illusion breaks, you can never restore it completely. The moment that report slipped beyond the palace's control, everything changed. Not publicly, not immediately, but behind those towering gates where power is protected with silence and perception is guarded like a national treasure. Because insiders say the palace didn't panic in the loud, chaotic way people imagine. No. The panic was cold, strategic, calculated. Within hours, the machine activated. Phones rang. Advisors were summoned. Emergency meetings unfolded behind heavy wooden doors where voices stayed low, but decisions carried enormous weight. Because this wasn't just about a report anymore. This was about survival. Not survival of a person, survival of an institution built on centuries of flawless illusion. And almost instantly, the public narrative began to shift. Suddenly, Prince Louis was everywhere again, but not in the unpredictable, spontaneous way people remembered. No, these appearances felt different. Controlled, polished, intentional. Carefully selected photographs began appearing, images of him laughing naturally, walking peacefully beside his mother, smiling in serene outdoor settings that radiated calm, stability, and emotional ease. But insiders claim these weren't random family moments. They were operations, every angle chosen deliberately, every image designed to send one silent message: everything is fine, nothing is wrong. Do not question what you think you saw. Because perception, insiders say, is the monarchy's most powerful weapon. Behind the scenes, media relationships reportedly shifted overnight. Certain journalists who once speculated freely suddenly fell silent. Coverage became softer, headlines became gentler, and whispers began circulating among media insiders that exclusive access, was being quietly negotiated in exchange for cooperation. Because controlling the narrative doesn't require confrontation, it requires influence. It requires reminding everyone that access is a privilege, and privileges can disappear. But even with the outside world temporarily calmed, the internal atmosphere remained tense. Because according to those familiar with the situation, the palace wasn't just reacting to the report, it was reacting to what the report represented. It represented loss of control, and loss of control is something the institution cannot tolerate. Sources claim new internal protocols were introduced almost immediately. Appearances became shorter, environments became quieter, schedules became less demanding. But these changes weren't announced, they weren't explained. Because acknowledging the reason behind the adjustments would mean acknowledging the truth itself. And yet, despite all the efforts to restore order, something irreversible had already happened. Because once a secret escapes into the world, it doesn't disappear. It lingers, it grows, it evolves. Insiders say Dr. K's departure was swift, almost surgical. Her presence erased from internal systems, her access revoked, her name no longer spoken in official discussions. But the damage had already been done, because what she left behind wasn't just a report, it was doubt. And doubt is far more dangerous than accusation. Accusations can be denied, doubt cannot. Because now every public appearance is viewed differently, every smile analyzed, every expression questioned. What once looked like harmless childish unpredictability now carries an entirely different weight. People aren't just watching anymore, they're observing. And insiders say the palace knows this. Because the institution has survived scandals before. Scandals involving betrayal, scandal involving power struggles, scandals involving broken relationships. But this was different. This wasn't about adult choices. This wasn't about mistakes. This was about vulnerability, something the monarchy has spent generations trying to hide. Because vulnerability weakens authority, and authority must remain unquestioned. Sources claim internal conversations began shifting toward the future, not the immediate future, but the long-term future. Because succession isn't just about bloodline, it's about readiness. It's about perception of strength. It's about ensuring the image of stability remains unbroken. And that's where the real fear began. Because if the public ever truly believed that one of the monarchy's youngest members was struggling under the weight of the institution itself, it wouldn't just change how people viewed him, it would change how people viewed the monarchy entirely. Because suddenly, the fairy tale wouldn't look magical anymore. It would look human, fragile, fallible, and insiders say that's the one thing the institution cannot allow. So the strategy continues. Carefully managed appearances, carefully timed releases, carefully constructed narratives designed to reinforce confidence, stability, and control. The illusion hasn't been abandoned, it's been refined. Because the monarchy doesn't fight scandals with confrontation, it fights them with time, with patience, with silence. But silence has its own consequences. Because the world has changed. People notice patterns now, people question inconsistencies. People analyze details that once went ignored. And insiders say the palace knows that maintaining the illusion today is harder than it has ever been. Because truth, once glimpsed, cannot be completely unseen. And somewhere behind those guarded walls, beyond the cameras, beyond the rehearsed smiles, beyond the centuries of tradition, a young prince continues growing up inside a system that demands perfection, whether perfection comes naturally or must be performed. And the most unsettling part isn't what has already been revealed, it's what may still remain hidden. Because insiders quietly agree on one thing: this story didn't end with that report. It only began there. Only began there. Only began there. Only began